Today, we're going to cover one of my favorite topics, core compression. This has been one of my biggest hurdles to overcome in my gymnastic career due to a limited range of motion in my lower back. So I'm really excited to share with you guys all of the drills and knowledge that I've gained in overcoming this hurdle. We're going to cover many different compression drills and strengthening techniques, but I will show you the different progressions from beginner to advanced so you can start at your current level. Especially if you're trying to gain the handstand press, it's important that you're not only stretching your pike, but also your small straddle along with your pancake split. These three moves is the pattern that your legs glide through as you do your handstand press. We're going to start with a few drills on the floor that require zero props. In your pike position, it's also very important that you are constantly keeping your knees straight. As soon as you bend your knees, that relaxes your hamstrings. And we want to make sure that we're also targeting our mobility in our hamstrings as well. We're going to stretch forward, and we want to superset with a passive stretch of lengthening the spine forward. So we're not just trying to round and get your nose to your knee, but you're also trying to lengthen your spine and stretch your head forward, almost as if you're trying to get your head to your toes, rather than just stretching down here. Think about lengthening the spine. Imagine you're doing your handstand press and you extend it forward. You're not just curled, you actually have to press through your shoulders. It's the same motion you want to think about as you do all of these drills. Superset that with stretching forward. So you're going to round your spine and then reach forward past your toes and back. So we get the passive stretch along with the isometric active stretching of reaching your hands forward and back, lengthening the spine and back. Then end that rep with pulling your head down, really getting a deeper stretch into your pike. We're going to do the same exact thing with a slightly wider pike, so almost a small straddle. I like to grab the insides of my feet so I can lengthen my spine, pull my head forward as I round forward between my legs. We can alternate between this passive, gentle stretching. I would hold for about 20 to 30 seconds. And then superset that with rounding the spine, lengthening the spine forward and back. Stretching, reaching as much as you can, and back. So you feel that throughout your glutes, your lower back, and into your hamstrings. Stretching forward and back, lengthening the spine. And then you want to make sure we're also targeting the bigger split as your legs go from the pike all the way into the straddle. Rounding the spine, reaching forward in that passive stretch, always thinking about extending and lengthening the spine forward so we can really target the glutes, the hamstrings, and even the adductors here in this wider split. Lengthening the spine forward and think about getting your chest to the floor and not just your head. Reaching, extending. We're going to do the same exact thing with going from rounding to extending the spine. Round, extend as much as you can. Rounding and extending. You can hold those passive holds for about 20 to 30 seconds. Superset that with the 10, rounding to reaching, and then another 10-second hold in a deeper stretch. Moving on to another one of my favorite pancake splits. You're going to stay in the wide, walk your hands out, rounding your spine, and then you're going to just lift your hands off the floor, trying to straighten your lower back. So you're going from the rounded position into the straight. In the same way that happens, if you complete your handstand press, you start in the rounded position and you extend into a straight backed handstand. So again, round the spine, then lift your hands off. I'm starting that move from my hips. So I'm not just trying to bounce my hands off, but I'm actually engaging my glutes, my hips, my hamstrings as I lift my hands off. So one more time. We start rounding, and then I'm engaging through my hips as if I'm lifting and my hands off. So I'm just basically straightening my spine to get my hands off the mat. walk your hands by your knees. I'm going to do the single leg lifts. Now, a nice way to advance this drill and make it target things like your handstand press, your shoulder press, is to place your hands by your knees and press into the ground. So it forces us to round and push through our shoulders. So this transforms into a full body mobility and core compression strengthening drill. So pressing into the ground, and then we're going to lift one leg off the ground and back. Again, important that you keep your knees locked out and straight. We don't want to start going into a super funky form. We want to keep it straight so we're also getting that active stretch through our hamstrings. From there, as you get stronger, you can switch to lifting both feet off at the same time. We can do the exact same thing in our small straddle, pressing our feet into the ground. You can start with one. Alternating legs, you can go into both feet. Same thing in our straddle. If you're starting with a single leg, place your hand on both sides of that working leg, rounding the spine. So we're pressing through our shoulders, lifting your leg off. Alternate legs. One leg is bound to be weaker than the other, so make sure that you don't just favor the good side. Alternating and working both sides evenly is very important. And then getting into both legs, hands in the center, pressing into the ground. So we're using our shoulders, rounding our spine, and then lifting both legs off. You can also walk your hands quite a bit further and make this a lot more challenging if you already have a pretty good range of motion. Then from there, we can come up and start working it from the top down. Pressing your hands into the ground, lift onto your toes, back down. Now the goal is to start getting light on your feet. So now you can press all the way up to your big toe. Then, once you get there, you can start lifting one foot to your hands. You can even start to do small hops across the mat. Leaning into your shoulders, pulling your feet forward, pressing through your shoulders the whole time. This next drill, I like to use a foam roller. You can also use a yoga block, anything that's light, but it adds a tiny bit of weight already. Imagine you're stretching forward, punching the ceiling up, lengthening your spine, reaching forward over your toes and back. Then come all the way up until you can lengthen your spine and rotate your hips open using your adductors. From here, I want you to keep your spine very tall and straight, and then only stretch forward as far as you can while keeping your lower back flat. If we can stretch forward with a straight lower back, that will target your hamstrings, adductors, and your hips more so. If you're only rounding forward, then we're just working the lower lumbar spine. So we really want to target the hips. So keep the spine long and only go down until you can, while keeping your lower back flat. So that might look like you only go here, or if you have more range of motion, you might be able to extend forward. But if you're getting close to the ground, I don't want to see your hands hit the ground. I want to see your chest hit the ground while your hands are still in the air. That's what you're going to get the most effectiveness in this stretch. And then working back, stretch forward and up. Again, straight spine. You can start to bring the other foot together so we evenly work both sides. Now getting into some drills that require a few more props, but if you have a PVC or a pipe, this is worth trying. Taking a light band, you're gonna wrap it behind your hips and then loop your PVC pipe or your stick through. Now you want the band close enough so your hands can stay within shoulder distance apart, and the placement of this band is pretty important. You want to make sure that it's low enough on your hips so that you can stretch forward without it snapping up. So from there, focus on keeping the shoulders straight and extended so you're already set up here with a rounded spine. Then you're going to press the band out to your toes. You should feel that working in your shoulders. Your core is going to light up with these, and it is such a great strengthening drill because we're really working that active pressing strength that we need, especially for our handstand press, stalter press, and a lot of other handstand drills as well. Rounding the spine, tight legs, pressing forward. We can do the same drill, but in a straddle. From here, you're going to need to make sure the band's even a little bit lower on your hips. The bar stays on the inside of your feet. You don't want to have to lift it around your feet. You want to be able to stay low and as close to the ground as possible. Prepping with a rounded spine as you stretch forward. Keeping your hands nice and low to the ground. And not lifting the PVC over your feet, but keeping it low to the ground in front of both feet. Coming to the wall, you're going to take your foam roller or your yoga block and butt it up against the wall. Step your heels onto the foam roller, and then the goal is to get your hands in as close to your feet as possible, and make sure your hips stay pressed onto the wall. The tendency, especially for this drill, is to let your hips drift away, but it's important that your hips stay pressed into the wall and your hands pressed into the ground as much as possible, and then you're going to try to pull your toes off the floor, down and back. The next variation of this drill is to do it without your yoga block or the foam roller. Same principles apply. You're going to step your feet as close to the wall as possible, so your heels are butted up against the wall, hands pressing into the ground, and then lift your toes off the floor. Set up, make sure your hips are pressed into the wall, pulling your toes off. And you can also do the same variation with a small straddle as well. Although with this one, it can be really helpful to elevate your feet. So you can set a couple yoga blocks or even a couple plates for your toes to step onto. Go into that small straddle, set up in the same way, pressing into the ground, hips into the wall, and pull your toes off. Both of those are really good drills to work the pressing strength through your shoulders, along with the hamstring mobility and that core compression. There are going to be a lot of people who struggle to even get their hips to the wall without any block. So if that is you, you can also do this variation instead. Just get your feet flat on the floor, get your hips into the wall. From there, you can either use a block to elevate your hands, so you can still push off, or gradually work to getting your hands to the floor, gradually get your hands closer. Then you can even, just off the floor, start to pull your toes up. And then gradually start elevating your heels and working into the other progressions that we just showed. If you're really limiting in this, then I would definitely focus on your hamstring mobility more so if you feel like this drill is impossible to get close to the wall, because most likely it's your hamstrings limiting your range of motion. Now coming to the bar. If you have access to a gym where there's a straight bar, implementing toes to bar is a really important foundational drill and will help you in so many areas. Starting off, again, we're gonna work the straight, so the pike, the small straddle, and then the full straddle. So the 3 different variations will look like this. Bring up, straight toes to bar, and then we have the small straddle, and then the full. Obviously, those are really advanced versions. So to start off, I always like to give my clients a bunch of different variations to start with. One is a single leg knee up, so you can alternate, or you can do both knees at the same time, or you can start to do half leg raises. Those can already be pretty fatiguing. So another version you can do is to try 2 to 3 toes to bar as high as you can, and then finish with 5 knee ups. So what that would look like is lifting your toes as high as you can. Try to get at least 3 reps as high as you can, really fight for that range of motion, and then finish off with 5 knee ups. an important thing to note when you're doing the toes to bar is just try to keep your body as still as possible so we're not swinging all over the place. But what that looks like is maintaining a tight, hollow body the entire time. So instead of going lax and trying to do your toes to bar where you're swinging and flailing all over the place, when you get up to the bar, lock in your hollow hold. Then perform your toes to bar from here. So here, maintain that hollow hold and pull right up. That keeps your body stationary so you're not flailing all over the place and really works that core stability and strength and compression work. If you're feeling fairly confident with your knee ups and your half leg raises, then you can already start to play with the straddles. So if you have your half leg raises, then you can start to do straddle ups. Those are some nice variations to build towards getting your full toes to bar. Make sure you work these in sets of 3, so you can do 3 max sets and then burn out with some knee ups to finish off. Thank you guys so much for watching. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe so we can grow this community together. We'll be posting new content every single week. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week.